Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you for now the last part of What If Ninja in Jujutsu Kaisen. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name in the description below. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Quick update. What If Ninja in Jujutsu Kaisen is now on hold, since we've caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these three fanfics. What if Reborn is Goku clone? What if Natsu has dual elements? What if Transmigrated in one piece and becoming a marine? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top pick and start working on that series next. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 191, Kenjaku's Still Alive. This move is also called Ultimate Star Rage. It is Yuki's ultimate killer move. She has never used it since she had mastered this technique. Now, let Kenjaku experience its power. The black hole was suspended in midair, not touching the ground below, but it had forcibly created a huge deep pit. The whole sky lost its light temporarily. Madman. Jogo and the others looked at the black hole behind Yuki and felt their scalps tingling. Including Tengen, they all retreated and hid. The compression of absolute mass instantly forms an ultra-high-density black hole. All objects and living things, even light, will be completely swallowed up. At this moment, all that was left for Kenjaku was boundless terror. He flapped his flesh wings madly, with only one thought in his mind. Escape! No one can withstand this black hole. Don't waste your efforts. I can't think of any way to avoid this attack except Kazuma's Kamui. Gravity, mass, and time will cease to exist at this moment. Yuki's playful words came from behind. Kenjaku suddenly lowered his head and saw a terrifying black shadow appearing under his feet. The powerful suction seemed to drag him into the abyss of hell. Everything around him fell into absolute darkness, and the only sound in his ears was the mocking voice of that damn woman. What now? Am I, a young kid, crazier than you? Yuki asked. At this moment, Kenjaku was completely speechless. The ground buildings of the Tombs of Star Corridor were reduced to ashes. The underground place shook violently, and the terrifying black hole with white light seemed bottomless. The empty barrier that Tengen and even the entire Jujutsu High were so proud of no longer existed. Boom! At this moment, the world was eclipsed. At this moment, there was only an endless roar in their ears. After the end of the world, the broken dome of the Tombs of Star Corridor cast dazzling sunlight, contrasting with the devastation on the ground. For the first time in hundreds of years, the Tombs of Star Corridor, which had never seen sunlight, welcomed the light. There was complete silence all around, as if the brutal battle just now had never happened. At this moment, there was no trace of Kenjaku. Yuki knelt weakly on the ground, a satisfied smile appearing on her pale face. The reason she had used this move was because she wanted to respond to Kenjaku's words. She can accept others saying she is weak, but she will never accept someone being crazier than herself. The damage she caused was just the one she could control. If she is given enough time, she can even bury the entire earth with her. Jogo and the others slowly crawled out from underground. They stuck their heads out, and carefully observed the scene around them. Now, I'm afraid even the ashes of Kenjaku have been scattered by you. Tengen stepped on a piece of gravel and sighed, with such power, I'm afraid that even if Kenjaku is given another life, he won't be able to survive. Yuki smiled confidently and said, I told you, no one can survive this move except for Kamui. Jogo breathed a sigh of relief and felt much better. He said, now that Kenjaku is gone, now I can finally go kill someone. Murder? Yuki frowned and glanced at the four disaster curses with a threatening look. Although I'm in a very weak state now, I should have no problem beating the four of you. Mahito said, Jogo, can't you explain yourself clearly? Jogo waved his hands and explained with a laugh, don't get me wrong, we received instructions from Kazuma to capture the high-ranking officials and throw them into the culling game to give Kazuma and his team points. Just now, the four of them had received instructions from Kazuma in their minds at the same time. After they have beaten up Kenjaku, they should go to the higher-ups. Hearing this, Yuki's expression changed instantly, and her eyes lit up. She said, "Go to those higher-ups to kill them? Take me with you." Shoko had already told her about the decisions of the higher-ups. This bunch of rotten oranges are completely hopeless. She has long wanted to destroy these hopeless old guys. When that happens, I will create a black hole directly on top of their heads. Jogo's mouth twitched. This crazy woman. As expected, none of the four special grade sorcerers from Jujutsu High are normal. As if she had just remembered something, Yuki showed a dangerous smile and said, "Tengen, you should not have heard anything, right?" Tengen was stunned for a moment, then shook his head helplessly. He said, "The world of Jujutsu is completely in chaos. What happens at the top has nothing to do with me." "Humph, you're smart." Yuki was now filled with anger. If Tengen dared to speak out to stop her, she won't mind using him to vent her anger. When everyone had left, a faint thumping sound was heard from beneath the silent rubble. Bang! Under the suddenly propped up stone stood a man covered in scars. Half of his body had been blown away by the terrifying black hole just now. With his only remaining hand, he gently brushed off the dust on his body. Kenjaku said with emotion, "What an ultimate killer move. She's even crazier than me. Yuki, I recognize you and look forward to the next battle." At the last moment of life and death, he had no choice but to use a technique that wasn't known to the public. That is the anti-gravity system. The owner of this cursed technique is Yuji's mother, Kaori. At the critical moment, he had instantly activated the anti-gravity system technique. At that moment, he didn't know whether this method would work, but in a life-and-death situation, he had no other choice. Fortunately, he made the right bet and pulled half of his life out of the black hole. However, even with such a miraculous operation, he still almost died in the black hole. What a terrible woman. Thinking of this battle, Kenjaku couldn't help but laugh at himself. In thousands of years, he has never been so miserable. This time he has completely failed and the chance of assimilating Tengen has become very low. With the addition of Kazuma, the culling game has probably really turned into a game of killing monsters and leveling up. Gojo will be unsealed soon, and his injuries may not recover in a short time. It's really troublesome. But Kenjaku took a deep breath and smiled with enjoyment. It's great to be alive. Having lived for 1,000 years, he cherishes his life more than anyone else. Anything and any plan requires a life to be done, and also requires a life to witness, right? He is not like those fools like Jogo who are willing to die for their ideals. The best plan at the moment is to regroup with Sukuna first, and the subsequent plans will be carried out around him. I wonder how Yuram is doing. Chapter 192, Angel. Colony Number 1. Inside a luxurious skyscraper room. Yuji and Megumi were sitting at the dining table. Opposite them was a girl with golden curly hair, a halo on her head, and a pair of angel-like wings behind her. Hana tilted her head and smiled slightly. She asked, "Did you sleep well, the two people of destiny?" Yuji smiled and politely responded, "It was okay." After the two had rushed to the culling game, they had encountered Higuruma and Registar respectively. Finally, after an unremitting search, they finally found Angel that they had been searching for, Kurusu Hana. Seeing Megumi, who was worried about his sister, Yuji summoned his golden bug and showed it. "Don't be so sullen, Megumi. We are getting closer and closer to victory. If you don't believe me, look." As he spoke, he stretched out his finger and continued, "Akari-senpai has scored 100 points, and Yuta-senpai has scored an impressive 190 points. Kazuma, who seems to have a cheat code, has even scored 500 points. With these points, you will definitely be able to save your sister." Hearing this, Megumi felt a little better. As long as they can meet up with Kazuma and others, there will be hope. Megumi took a deep breath and looked seriously at the blonde girl sitting opposite him, staring at him with a crazy look on her face. Megumi asked, "Hana, are you really Angel? If so, please help us unseal the prison realm." Megumi felt that Kurusu Hana was not like an angel, but more like a nymphomaniac. At this moment, a voice that did not belong to Hana reached their ears. Yes, I am Angel. The next second, a terrifying mouth appeared on Kurusu Hana's face. Yuji was petrified on the spot when he saw this. He couldn't even speak clearly. Mouth. He knew the mouth on Hana's face very well. Isn't this exactly the same as with Sukuna in his body? However, the mouth on Hana's face didn't care about the exaggerated reactions and started to talk. Hey, Megumi, I remember what Hana thinks. Before she could finish her words, Hana, who was blushing, slapped the mouth. However, the mouth appeared on the back of Hana's hand. Knowing that Hana was thin-skinned, Angel changed the subject. My innate curse technique can invalidate any cursed technique. The colonies are no exception. So this is why Hana and I can freely cross the colonies without consuming points. Of course, the main reason is that there is a mad demon in the second colony. The mad demon mentioned by Angel refers to Kashimo, who was fooled by Panda. As for the prison realm you mentioned, I can actually unlock it. Hearing this, Yuji's eyes flashed with excitement, and he even stood up excitedly. His tense nerves were relieved, and he excitedly high-fived Hana. However, the next second, Angel's words sounded again. But, I need you to help me find someone. The disgraced one. If you help me find and kill the disgraced one, I will immediately unlock the prison realm. As the word disgraced one was spoken, Yuji's eyes suddenly widened. The extremely evil feeling came again. The scene suddenly changed, and a scenery filled with blood and bones appeared before his eyes. The countless broken limbs and arms scattered on the ground let him know that this was the devil's domain. Sukuna sat on the mountain of bones and said impatiently, I feel sick when I see your lowly face. Living inside your body is the only shame of my life. But now, for your life and my safety, I'm going to tell you a secret before you, an idiot, spill the beans. Yuji clenched his fists and stared at Sukuna. He wanted to see what this demon who killed people without blinking an eye had to say. The next second, Sukuna's words made Yuji completely frozen in place. I am the disgraced one. Facing Angel, who was his nemesis, Sukuna told Yuji his other name from thousands of years ago. Did you understand, idiot? What? You damn jinx, how much does everyone hate you that you have so many nicknames? Yuji pointed at Sukuna angrily. If he could defeat him, he would beat this demon that had occupied his body to death today. Okay, then I will tell Angel that you are hiding inside me. Ha ha. Sukuna held his chin up, looked at him like a fool, and sneered, you will die. Yuji said, what if I die? For everyone's safety, for Gojo-sensei to see the light of day again, I am willing to die. It's you who ruined my life. It's you who made me a time bomb. As long as I die, I can at least make you lose more than half of your strength, or even destroy you together. Seeing Yuji become so angry, Sukuna was a little surprised. He hadn't expected Yuji's hatred for him to have reached such a level. If it were someone else, this horrible negative emotion would immediately catalyze a powerful curse. This kid's willpower is amazingly strong. However, Sukuna no longer liked this body. The black-haired kid outside was even more tempting to him. After his thoughts turned upside down, Sukuna still smiled calmly and said, it doesn't matter if you die. But have you ever thought about what would happen if Angel finds out that I, the disgraced one that she wants to kill, has been living in your body? Will she still trust you? Will she help you unlock the prison realm? Perhaps that naive Hana will be willing, but the one who can make the decision is Angel, who is living in her body. Looking at Yuji, who was standing there in confusion, Sukuna revealed a wicked smile and waved his hand. Go ahead and tell her, but your dear Gojo-sensei will never come out again. Ha ha ha, idiot. Yuji lowered his head and said nothing, but his nails that were deeply embedded in his flesh revealed his anger and helplessness at the moment. Sukuna was right. Perhaps his death could replace Sukuna, but if Angel becomes suspicious, she might refuse to lift the seal. Then, Gojo-sensei will never see the light of day again. Yuji returned to the outside world. Megumi noticed that something was wrong with Yuji's expression and was about to ask about it when he was interrupted. Anonymous has added a rule. Teleport the player Fushiguro Tsumaki to the colony where Yuji is. Megumi suddenly stood up and his eyes widened. Sister. Chapter 193, Tsumaki? Megumi's eyes suddenly widened, unable to suppress the excitement in his heart. Who on earth was willing to spend 100 points to teleport his sister here? Could it be Yuta-senpai and the others? But why Anonymous? Although he was extremely eager to see his sister Tsumaki, he was not overwhelmed by the sudden surprise. At this time, Yuji, who was standing by, said, Megumi, don't get excited. Don't forget that your sister was taken away by Kenjaku. Now she suddenly appears here. What conspiracy could there be? After saying that, Yuji called out to Sukuna frantically in his heart, wanting to ask if this was his conspiracy. But no matter how hard he pressed, the answer he got was just one word. Idiot. Wasn't it too much of a deliberate act to teleport Tsumaki to Yuji's side? Yes, Yuji is right. Angel also nodded in agreement. Megumi clenched his fists and said, no matter what, I have to go downstairs to check now. This is not a safe place, fighting is taking place all the time. If Tsumaki encounters any danger, he will regret it for the rest of his life. Hey, your damn sister complex, let us go down with you. Seeing Megumi's expression that showed he wouldn't change his mind, Yuji shook his head and smiled bitterly. Soon after, the platform downstairs. In the sky, a black figure suddenly landed on the ground. Ah! Tsumaki, who fell from a high altitude but was unharmed, patted her chest, looking frightened. Wow! Teleportation? Yuji was so shocked by this magical scene that he couldn't help but exclaim, this is exactly like playing a game. Megumi, is this your sister? She's so beautiful. Megumi glanced at Yuji with a wary look on his face, then fixed his eyes on his sister. Whether in appearance or tone of voice, the girl in front of him is no different from his sister. But, his sister had been lying in bed for many years and had fallen into a deep sleep because of a curse. But now, she had appeared in front of him alive and kicking. Was all this done by Kenjaku? What on earth does that damn guy want to do? Tsumaki smiled as she looked at her brother who was deep in thought. She said, Megumi, long time no see, did you miss me? Falling from the sky really gave me a scare. With just a few words from Tsumaki, Megumi was unable to think anymore. Sister. She is his sister, no one can imitate her. However, Hana on the side noticed that something was wrong. She remembered that when she was a child, she had seen Tsumaki from a distance, and her personality seemed a little different from now. But she couldn't explain why. She looked at Tsumaki and asked, Hello, Tsumaki, do you know who spent 100 points to teleport you here? Now is the time to make a good impression on her future sister-in-law. But now, Megumi is so excited that he has lost his judgment. She must figure out everything. Yuji smiled and asked, Oh, right, I almost forgot. Tsumaki, which kind-hearted person teleported you here? You can talk about their appearance, too. For example, a weak-looking boy or a man with one red and one purple eye? In Yuji's opinion, if it was really the work of Jujutsu High, then either Yuta or Kazuma, who had the most points, were the most likely to be responsible. Moreover, these two people were present at the time and knew that Megumi's sister was taken away by Kenjaku. Tsumaki hesitated for a while, then nodded excitedly. She said, Yes. It was the man with one red eye and one purple eye who sent me here. It's thanks to him that I could be rescued, otherwise I might have never been able to see Megumi again. Hearing this, Yuji and Megumi breathed a sigh of relief. Putting aside the possibility of someone wearing cosmetic contact lenses, Kazuma is the only one in the entire world of Jujutsu to have such eyes. A man with one red and one purple eye? Hana tilted her head to show that she didn't understand. Neither she nor Angel within her had ever seen eyes like these. Angel's intuition made her feel inexplicably uneasy. But if she continues asking now, it will probably leave a bad impression on Megumi. What are you doing standing there? Go and reunite with your sister. As he said that, Yuji transferred all his points to Megumi without hesitation. By the way, spend another 100 points to send her back from the culling game. Megumi stood there in a daze, feeling extremely grateful, and finally managed to utter 2 words. Thank you. He stepped forward, grabbed Tsumiki's hand, transferred the points to her, and carefully instructed her how to add rules. Tsumiki smiled and nodded. She took a step back, waved to the crowd, and blurted out. Add additional rules to allow players to enter and exit the colonies freely. What? As soon as Tsumiki said these words, the 3 people's eyes widened in disbelief. What she should have said was, escape from the culling game. What on earth is going on? Megumi suddenly took 2 steps back. His pupils shrank and his forehead was covered with cold sweat. He stared at Tsumiki, who was smiling, and spoke slowly. You, who are you? Ha 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 ha. The people in Jujutsu High are really idiots. Tsumiki's expression suddenly changed. The originally gentle Wani-san vibe that she gave off completely disappeared. A crazy smile appeared on her face. A voice that was completely different from Tsumiki's echoed throughout the entire platform. Of course I am your sister, Megumi. Get out of my sister's body now. Megumi roared, unable to hold back his anger. At this moment, he felt extremely regretful. He should have thought of this earlier. Why would Kenjaku lead his sister to meet Kazuma? For a moment, Yuji and Hana's brains went blank. Were they tricked? Not only was their feelings betrayed, but also the 100 points they had worked so hard to earn were wasted? Yuji clenched his fists. Who are you? What he hated most were people who played with people's feelings. Let me tell you, my name is Yorozu. You may not have heard of it, but those old guys hundreds of years ago should know it. I have to thank you very much for giving me the answer to your question. Thanks to that, I was able to get away with it. Originally, when Yuji had asked who had teleported her here, Yorozu was shocked and didn't know how to respond. But who would have thought that this naive Yuji would actually give her the answer? Want to know who sent me here? I can tell you. I don't know her name, but she has white hair, a mushroom-type hairstyle, and a cold expressionless face. White mushroom hairstyle, facial paralysis girl? You Rom? Yuji and Megumi immediately had the answer in their hearts. During the Shibuya incident, after Kazuma used that repulsion technique, Yuram had disappeared without a trace. Jujutsu High had searched for her afterwards, but could not find any trace of her. Chapter 194, Megumi's Trump Card. Megumi was overwhelmed with regret and endless guilt. Why did you lie to me? Yorozu just smiled evilly and said, no reason, isn't it good to get 100 points without any effort? As for why I added such a rule. Yorozu paused briefly, took a deep look at Yuji's body, then stuck out her bright red tongue, and licked her lips. She said eagerly, I know you can hear me, I won't interfere with what happens next. But once you accomplish your goal, don't even think about abandoning me. Yuji and the others had no idea what Yorozu meant. The next second, dragonfly-like wings grew on Yorozu's back. As her thin wings vibrated rapidly, her body floated into the air. Yorozu blinked and blew a kiss to the 3 of them playfully. Bye. Whoosh. As soon as she finished speaking, she flew into the distant sky like a cannonball. Chase. Yuji and Hana reacted immediately and chased after her at high speed. They must pull her down before she flies away. However, Yorozu, who was flying in the air, suddenly stopped and turned to look down, smiling triumphantly. Then, in front of their shocked eyes, she took out a finger. She said, take it. Just consider it as my dowry to you. What? That's Sukuna's finger. Was she talking to the Sukuna in his body just now? Sure enough, a scary mouth suddenly appeared on Yuji's face. The finger still falling in the air seemed to sense Sukuna. It turned into a streak of light and flew towards Yuji. Get out of the way! Megumi shouted from the back. However, the finger moved too fast for Yuji to react. The finger instantly fell into the terrifying mouth. Well. Yuji stood there in a daze, with his head down and no words. Yuji, what's wrong with you? The next second, the demon that was occupying Yuji's body reappeared. Sukuna tightly strangled Hana's neck. Hana was unable to react in time. She quickly went into shock and fainted on the ground due to the terrifying feeling of suffocation. Sukuna turned his head to look at Megumi, who was rushing over. The long-awaited opportunity has finally arrived. Now he has gained the strength of 16 fingers, and has improved exponentially in every aspect. Therefore, he can forcibly occupy Yuji's body and move freely for 1 minute. However, he cannot do anything too big, in other words, he cannot kill anyone. However, not being able to kill is nothing compared to the perfect vessel, Megumi. Sukuna, return Yuji's consciousness to him. Megumi made a hand gesture. He could clearly see that Yuji was still completely unconscious. Maybe there is still a chance to wake him up. Come back? Okay. Sukuna grinned, and in front of Megumi's shocked gaze, he suddenly tore off Yuji's left ring finger. Sizzle! The bloody severed finger made a sharp contrast with the hideous face of the devil. What on earth are you going to do? Megumi stared at Sukuna intently. He didn't understand why Sukuna would commit such a self-mutilating act. Sukuna held up the severed finger as if he was admiring a piece of art. He knew that he had won the bet. The intense pain did not allow Yuji to regain control of his body. Instead, his willpower was impacted for a brief moment and his body was completely possessed. Although Sukuna will feel pain as well, he is stronger than Yuki in terms of willpower. From the Heian era till now, no one has ever defeated him. Looking at Sukuna's increasingly wide smile, Megumi felt uneasy. Yuji? Yuji, can you hear me? His words of probing were no longer effective, and the thing he was most worried about happened. Megumi realized the situation and started to make hand seals without hesitation. However, when the hand seal was only halfway formed, a devilish low voice sounded in his ears. You know, you're more attractive than Yuji. Megumi's eyes widened, and he tried to fight back with a punch, but was locked tightly by a powerful fist. Bang! A punch that was too fast to be captured by the naked eye hit Megumi's abdomen. Along with a dull sound, Megumi's eyes turned bloodshot. His cheeks were forced to bulge, and he spat out a mouthful of gastric juice. Under the huge force, his body kept hitting the ground. Not bad, his physical endurance is no worse than that idiot Yuji. Ahem. Megumi, who had stopped himself, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth when he was hit by Sukuna, who had flashed over again. Bang! 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 The huge gap in strength left him with no power to fight back. While Sukuna was attacking Megumi physical ly, he also did not forget to attack his heart. You realize you're weak, right? It's fine that you can't protect your best friend. But even your sister has been possessed by someone. There is infinite potential hidden in your body, but you don't know how to use it. It's not an exaggeration to say that you are useless, right? Bang! With another kick, Megumi was kicked hard into the ground. Puff! A mouthful of blood suddenly spurted out, and Megumi struggled to stand up. Useless? Facing Megumi's crazy grin, Sukuna frowned. What's going on? These heart-piercing words didn't hit him at all? Sukuna said, Hey, kid, what are you crazy about? Did you get a concussion? Megumi's arms fell weakly, and he stood up shakily. The messy hairstyle covered half of his face. His eyes were gloomy, and he looked up at Sukuna, with a crazy smile on his face. I'm going to die first, you do your best. Bang! A pair of pale arms full of explosive muscles instantly knocked Megumi away. Looking in front, Sukuna saw a monster with a huge body like a small mountain, a ferocious face, pale skin, and a roulette-like structure on its head. Kazuma, who had killed all the cursed spirits in the colony, looked up at the sky. It seems that Sukuna has met Maharaga. Now, everyone knows that something has happened to Megumi. Is the final battle of Culling Game about to begin? I'll go join in the fun too. On the other side, Toji stomped the cursed spirit under his feet and said in an extremely gloomy tone, "You're courting death if you dare to touch my son. He doesn't care what kind of bullshit king of curses you are. When he was alive, he even dared to kill Gojo. Now that he has died once, what does Sukuna matter?" Chapter 195, Sukuna vs. Maharaga. 8-handled sword divergent Sela Divine General Maharaga. The ultimate Shikigami of the 10 Shadows technique. A former head of the Zenin clan had summoned an untamed Maharaga to die together with the head of the Gojo clan who had possessed the 6 eyes. With this, you can see how powerful it is. If it were an ordinary sorcerer, they would have been frightened to the point of rolling on the ground. Sukuna slowly walked out of the ruins, with no injuries. That powerful punch just now didn't cause any harm to him. Sukuna clenched his fists, and grinned excitedly. "Maharaga, huh? Let me check your quality." In response to Sukuna, the ring above Maharaga's head slightly shook. The next second, an afterimage appeared in an instant. Bang! A punch! The punch was so powerful that Sukuna, who had raised his arm to block it, flew backwards again. With this punch, Sukuna felt as if he was hit by a high-speed truck. Maharaga grasped the sword of extermination in its hand, and then its figure flashed and instantly approached Sukuna. Without a moment's hesitation, the sword of extermination cut through the air and slashed down towards Sukuna's neck. However, Sukuna became even more ferocious. A mouth suddenly appeared from his Adam's apple and he bit the sword of extermination. Click! The sword of extermination that was specifically designed to kill cursed spirits was actually bitten off by Sukuna. If Sukuna's true nature was a cursed spirit, this attack could have turned him into ashes. But now, he is in human form. This level of attack no longer poses any threat to him who has already devoured 16 fingers. Sukuna fell to the ground and lightly stroked with his fingers. Cleave. Whoosh. An invisible blade that was incredibly fast cut through. Boom. A terrifying 10-meter-long cut instantly appeared on the wall of the building opposite him. Maharaga stood there as if petrified, with a thin line of blood appearing on its head. Half of its head began to disintegrate and fall off. Sukuna's calm voice rang out. "It's over." Just then. Clang! The wheel above Maharaga's head rotated like the hands of a clock. The half of its head that was about to fall off actually returned to its original position as if time had gone back. The fatal wound on its head healed instantly at this moment, as if it had not been attacked at all. Seeing this incredible scene, Sukuna's eyes flashed with surprise. As the king of curses, he could tell at a glance that it was not reverse cursed technique that had healed Maharaga, but an ability that he had never seen before. You really gave me a big surprise." He looked towards Megumi who was lying unconscious on the ground in the distance. He hadn't expected this kid to actually have such a powerful force hidden in his body. "You are full of treasures." Maharaga's attack struck again. Sukuna's eyes were filled with fighting spirit, and instead of retreating, he advanced. He knew that Maharaga was an untamed Shikigami from the 10 Shadows technique. Since Maharaga is an untamed Shikigami, he can tame it. Suddenly, Colony Number 1 ushered in a terrifying battle. The aftermath of the battle caused all players and cursed spirits to stay away. Maharaga's roar resounded through the sky, and its incomparable body turned into an unstoppable bulldozer, destroying all the buildings along the way. However, despite this, Sukuna was not at all inferior to it. He even dealt with Maharaga's attacks with ease. Whoosh! An invisible slash swept across, cutting off Maharaga's fist and arm that were coming towards him. Then, Sukuna waved his arm downwards. One of Maharaga's feet was separated from his body. Boom! Sukuna kicked sideways, instantly sending Maharaga's huge body flying and crashing into a large car shop. Looking at his smoking fist, Sukuna blew lightly and looked inside the car shop. He uttered in a low voice, "Submit, or die." However, what responded to him was numerous cars speeding over. Whoosh! 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 Maharaga grabbed all the cars in the store and threw them at Sukuna without thinking. It seems that it still hasn't been defeated. Looking at the cars that were rushing towards him, Sukuna put his hands in his pockets, and countless slashes swept forward. In the blink of an eye, a large number of cars were cut into long thin noodle-like shapes and scattered across the sky. The next moment, Maharaga's figure flashed in front of Sukuna again. The battle between the two begins again. During the battle, no matter the cars on the roadside or the houses along the way, Maharaga threw them everywhere like toys. However, after devouring the 16th finger, Sukuna was able to stroll leisurely under such a crazy attack. However, during this period, he found that his slashes were becoming less and less effective. This made him realize Maharaga's terrifying ability. Adaptation. As expected, every time the wheel on Maharaga's head rotated, it adapted to his attacks. Sukuna estimated that after the wheel rotates about 6 times, his slashes will be completely ineffective. Thinking of this, Sukuna grinned, dodging Maharaga's crazy attacks while thinking in his heart. I had never expected there to be such a mind-blowing ability in this world. If I can obtain this incredible adaptability, my power will increase again. There is even a chance to surpass his peak 1,000 years ago. At that time, he can perfectly counter Gojo's Infinity, Hollow Purple and other moves. Fuga. As Sukuna's low and hoarse voice fell, a huge flaming arrow suddenly shot out, dyeing the entire sky red. As the huge flames slowly died down, everything was over. The terrifying Shikigami Maharaga had already been reduced to ashes, leaving only the broken wheel rolling on the ground. Watching the wheel gradually disappearing from the ground, Sukuna knew that he had subdued Maharaga. Chapter 196, Yuji vs Megumi? Next, comes the more important thing. Sukuna had a sinister smile on his face and walked leisurely towards Megumi, who was unconscious in the distance. In the battle just now, he had deliberately kept his attacks as far away from Megumi as possible. From ancient times to the present, the only person who could be taken care of by him in this way is probably just Megumi, right? Sukuna took out the severed finger that he had torn off before. He squatted down, roughly opened Megumi's mouth, and put Yuji's severed finger in it. You should be content, right? It is your greatest honor to be valued by me. Ugh. The next second, Megumi, who had fainted, suddenly opened his eyes wide, put his hand into his mouth, and tried to dig the finger out frantically. However, the powerful cursed energy filled every cell in the body, and the black energy that belonged to the King of Curses spread crazily. Megumi's eyes were bloodshot and his face was extremely ferocious. It's so painful. Megumi spat out blood and stared at Yuji, who was standing there unconscious. So, you have been enduring this kind of pain. At this moment, he finally realized how much Yuji had been enduring. Megumi? Yuji finally woke up. He patted Megumi's body gently with a look of horror on his face. However, the person who slowly raised his head was no longer his friend. Bang! Yuji's hand was ruthlessly slapped away, and an evil face covered with strange evil patterns slowly raised up. Sukuna smiled triumphantly. Do you remember what I said? I'll give you a big surprise later. Sukuna could hardly suppress his excitement at this moment, as he finally possessed the body he had dreamed of for so long. The King of Curses from thousands of years ago has come to the world again. Now, he no longer has to suffer the constraints of Yuji, the strongest vessel. In other words, he no longer has to worry about losing control of his body. Yuji's eyes widened in horror, his trembling pupils fixed on Sukuna in front of him. Rip! Sukuna tore his clothes and ran his hands across his hair. Sukuna was looked up at the sky, feeling very happy. He felt like he had been reborn. Ah, this body is so amazing. Whether it's the degree of compatibility or the 10 shadows technique that comes with the body, they are all so tempting. And now, he finally has them. Ha 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 ha. The unruly laughter spread throughout the Tokyo colony. Looking at Megumi, who was emitting a black aura, Yuji said anxiously, Megumi, don't let his consciousness take over. Sukuna was in a playful mood and pretended to speak like Megumi. Yuji, save me. However, the devilish black lines on his face became even more intense, and his calm face could make a normal person tremble with fear at a glance. The strong cursed energy sizzling in his palms proved that Megumi would never come back. The EXT second. Sukuna's fist roughly hit Yuji's abdomen hard. The powerful impact caused Yuji's body to bend uncontrollably. The terrifying cursed energy penetrated Yuji's abdomen and burst out from his back. Puff! Yuji's pupils contracted, and a large mouthful of blood suddenly spurted out of his throat. The severe pain from his internal organs being severely damaged almost made him faint. Sukuna smiled sinisterly and continued to exert his strength. "It's not over yet, my dear friend." Boom! Yuji rapidly flew backward, crashing through concrete skyscrapers one after another. The violent collision sounded throughout the Tokyo colony. Yuji was knocked hundreds of meters away and flew backward in the air. He stared at Sukuna, his eyes full of anger and unwillingness. Finally, the force of the punch dissipated, and Yuji, lying in the ruins, was covered in blood, as if paralyzed. This huge noise caused Toji, who had just entered this colony, to turn around suddenly. Without any hesitation, he raised his sword and rushed towards the battlefield in the distance. Meanwhile, Sukuna just sneered. He had already sensed several powerful auras approaching. No matter what era it is, there will always be ignorant bugs that come to bother me. In that case, they can all die. As he spoke, he gently raised his hands and formed the hand seals of the 10 Shadows technique. A black shadow and lightning flashed by. The huge Shikigami Nu landed on top of a building. The spread wings completely covered several buildings. The Shikigami that Megumi used to use became 10 times bigger and stronger than before when it was under Megumi's control. The characteristic of the Shikigami following its master also made Nu look unusually ferocious. Under Sukuna's control, it roared. Purple lightning filled the sky like thunder snakes descending from the sky. The target of the attack was Toji, who had rushed to the scene at full speed. This scene looked like it was a punishment from heaven. Sukuna smiled with satisfaction. This way, the bugs that were disturbing his adaptation to this body should be solved. Just when Sukuna was about to take the opportunity to study how to use Maharaga's ability, a figure suddenly flew out of the sky. Sukuna looked up and saw that it was Hana. At this moment, Hana was bathed in golden holy light. The dazzling light made Sukuna unable to help but raise his hand to block it. Sukuna's newly improved mood disappeared instantly, replaced by endless anger. In a real sense, Angel is his natural enemy that hard counters him. He alone had almost caused the world of Jujutsu to collapse 1,000 years ago. But Angel is the only one who he doesn't want to face. In the sky, the cursed energy in Hana's body rose as she slowly flapped her wings. Angel who lives in her body has long been thirsty for Sukuna's blood. The demon that she has been chasing for 1,000 years is right before her eyes. This is a great opportunity to completely eradicate him. However, Hana worriedly looked at Sukuna on the ground and said with a trembling voice, "Wait. If I kill Sukuna like this, will Megumi also?" Angel said firmly, "There is no other way now. If we kill Sukuna now, Megumi may still have a chance to survive. The longer we wait, the slimmer the chances of Megumi surviving." After saying that, Angel controlled Hana's body and began to chant. Sukuna felt fear for the first time in his life, but he did not run away with all his might. Because he knew that the range of Angel's curse technique was large enough to cover the entire city, and he had nowhere to hide. Furthermore, when Angel is chanting, she is in a state of absolute invincibility. His attacks can't cause any damage to her, let alone interrupt her chanting. O divine light that descends from the heavens, tear through the wicked and cleanse the impure. By the decree of the angels, let all curses be undone and all shackles be broken. Shine forth, holy radiance, and erase all that is tainted. Jacob's Ladder. Chapter 197, Are you hungry, Sukuna? Boom! As Angel's curse technique was activated, a huge halo appeared out of thin air above the entire Tokyo colony. The cross in the middle of the aperture emitted a dazzling holy light. The whole city was instantly illuminated at this moment. As the holy light rapidly shrank, a beam of light descended from the sky. The location where the beam of light fell was exactly where Sukuna was. Ah! Sukuna was locked by the beam and fell to the ground, unable to move at all. The black cursed energy in his body was being madly drawn out. Sukuna's face turned hideous, and his miserable howls resound throughout the Tokyo colony. In the sky, Angel continued to increase the output of her cursed energy. Below, Megumi's desperate cries made Hana burst into tears. She shouted frantically, "Give Megumi back to me! Give Megumi back to me!" A minute passed. Sukuna, lying on the ground, could no longer utter a word, and Hana was already in tears. At this moment, Megumi's distinct voice rang out. "Hana, thank you, I'm back." Hana's expression suddenly trembled, and she immediately stopped outputting any more cursed energy. Because this voice was extremely familiar, it is a voice that only Megumi has. The black lines on Megumi's face dissipated. Megumi stood up slowly, and a long-lost smile appeared on his face. He said softly, "Thanks to you, I'm fine now." Megumi stretched out his hand and looked tenderly at Hana in the sky. Hana was so excited that tears welled up in her eyes. Great! Her efforts have not been in vain, Megumi is finally back. Now she just wants to open her arms and hug the love of her life. No! Hana! Keep performing the cursed technique. The disgraced one cannot be purified in such a short time. That's not your Megumi. Angel screamed madly inside Hana's heart. Jacob's ladder is a unique purification technique. Once it is interrupted, it cannot be activated again for a short period of time. By then, this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity will be completely ruined. However, at this moment, Hana was completely overwhelmed by emotions. She flew down the sky recklessly, rushing towards Megumi. At this moment, space fluctuated and a vortex that was wide enough for one person to pass through appeared. "Are you hungry?" Before the person could arrive, a voice was heard. Kazuma rushed out of the vortex and stuffed the Rasengan in his hand directly into Sukuna's mouth. Bang! The violent impact caused Sukuna to fly backwards, his stunned eyes full of confusion. This sudden scene made Hana just stand there in a daze, still keeping her hands outstretched. Obviously, she was completely stunned. Kazuma ignored this psychotic woman and looked at Sukuna lying on the ground. He mockingly said, "The king of curses is trying to use a honey trap? You didn't rely on this trick to kill people all over the world 1,000 years ago, did you?" Kazuma wanted to laugh at this moment. Did Sukuna learn this from the old and sinister Kenjaku? Is he also going to take white flashes like Kenjaku? My goodness, the two villains in the world of Jujutsu are both masters of emotional deception? One used a honey trap against Gojo, and now Sukuna is also using a honey trap? Kazuma raised his middle finger to Sukuna. Bastard! Honey trap? Hana's eyes suddenly widened and she covered her mouth in disbelief. No matter how stupid she was, at this moment, she knew that she had been deceived by Sukuna. Boundless anger suddenly arose in her heart. Damn king of curses! Even killing him 1,000 times is not enough. He actually dared to use Megumi's body to fool her. She secretly swore in her heart that she would tie Sukuna to a cross and torture him with Jacob's ladder every day. Make him live a life worse than death. "Ah, it's you again, little brat." Sukuna wiped the blood off his face and stood up shakily. "You have ruined my plans time and again. Now that I have taken over Megumi's body, possess 10 shadows technique, and have devoured 16 fingers, do you think you can still get the upper hand?" Sukuna did not reveal the matter of having tamed Magaraga. After all, this is his trump card for the future. Trash! Kazuma said lightly. Sukuna narrowed his eyes slightly, revealing murderous intent. "What did you say?" Kazuma said, "I said you're trash. So what if you have 16 fingers? Aren't you still trash?" After these words came out, Hana and Angel who was in her body were stunned. Where did this man come from? How dare he point a finger at Sukuna and call him trash? And judging from Sukuna's tone, it seems that the two of them have fought before? Hana, pay attention to his eyes. Angel said in surprise, and Hana looked closely. Red eyes? Could he be the friend from Jujutsu Kaisen had mentioned before? The Mangekyo Sharingan seemed to have magical powers, making Hana unable to take her eyes off of it. Kazuma noticed something and tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowing slightly. Hana, don't look. The reminder from Angel pulled Hana's gaze back. Her face turned pale, her heartbeat quickened, and she said in fear, "What strange eyes." Just by looking for a second, she felt like she was trapped in a quagmire. If this had happened during a battle, this brief moment of daze would be enough for the opponent to kill her. No wonder even Sukuna had deliberately looked away the moment Kazuma had arrived. Hana secretly called out in her heart, "Angel, you have a lot of experience, what is the origin of these eyes? I've never seen it before, but I'm sure that it's a pair of eyes that can forcibly influence people's minds." Angel had never seen such strange eyes. Ha ha. Sukuna laughed in anger. Although your genjutsu is annoying, the way to deal with it is very simple. Killing you is easy. Although he said this, Sukuna didn't really want to fight an opponent of Kazuma's level at the moment. Firstly, he had just withstood Angel's Jacob's ladder and was not in good condition. Secondly, he had just taken over Megumi's body and had not yet fully adapted to it, so he could not display his full strength. Also, Kazuma's strange ability to become virtual made the 10 Shadows technique he had just mastered ineffective. Kazuma couldn't help laughing when he saw Sukuna's stubborn attitude. Knowing the plot, he naturally understood Sukuna's current situation. "You suicidal bastard!" Suddenly, an extremely cold voice sounded beside his ears. The next second, a black figure broke through the barrier and fell from the sky. Boom! The huge impact force created a huge deep pit in the ground and stirred up a cloud of dust. Sukuna dodged the attack and put his hands in his pockets. He moved his head and looked at the deep pit on the ground with displeasure. Inside the deep pit, a man wearing a black tight-fitting shirt and holding a blood-stained long sword was staring at him as if he were his prey. Kazuma said, "You are too late. Your son has already been possessed by someone." Toji glanced sideways at Kazuma and said, "Let me handle it. I must divide him into 8 sections today." Kazuma looked at Toji with interest, whose eyes were extremely cold. Well, he wanted to see what kind of sparks would be created when Toji would face Sukuna. Chapter 198, Toji vs. Sukuna. Hana standing by was stunned. She quickly put on a gentle and ladylike look. Is he Megumi's father? It looks like he's very powerful. Although she had never heard of him, his appearance and hair are indeed very similar to Megumi's. She must perform well in front of her future father-in-law. Facing Hana's gaze, Toji simply ignored it. At this moment, he just wanted to quickly pull out the bastard that was occupying Megumi's body. He stroked the bloody long sword in his hand and blurted out cold words. "No matter who you are, get out of my son's body immediately. Otherwise, I'll chop you up and feed your flesh to the dogs." Sukuna stared at the man in front of him who had a strong aura. There is no fluctuation of cursed energy coming from him, but what is this invisible sense of oppression? Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows slightly, as if he had remembered something, and grinned excitedly. "I see, it's actually a heavenly restriction. No wonder Nu couldn't get rid of you. I am sorry for occupying your son's body and using his curse technique to attack you. But..." Sukuna licked the blood from the corner of his mouth and smiled evilly. "So what?" Whoosh! An extremely sharp cold light flashed. Sukuna slightly tilted his head to dodge, but found a drop of blood dripping from his cheek. So fast. The next second, he flashed. 2 afterimages collided at high speed in the air. Bang! 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 In just a few breaths, the two had exchanged nearly 100 moves. The rumbling sound of fists hitting flesh spread, and the terrifying force swept around. Toji's superhuman body wasn't inferior to Sukuna. Moreover, he had already made preparations long before coming. When Sukuna does not activate his domain, he needs to raise his hand to release a slashing attack. Even if this initial movement is tiny, Toji had the confidence to detect and dodge Sukuna's technique. At this moment, Sukuna felt that the opponent's punches were getting stronger and stronger. His arms were already numb from the shock. But he was not panicked at all, instead he showed a crazy fighting spirit. It's been a long time since he has encountered an opponent with such strong taijutsu. Therefore, he wanted to use taijutsu to completely crush the opponent's pride. The battle between Toji and Sukuna was a rare scene. This is all thanks to Edo Tensei. What is certain is that Toji will not be able to defeat Sukuna. But Kazuma wanted to see how much strength Toji could bring out of Sukuna. The battle between the two will not end in a short period of time. Kazuma flashed and came in front of Yuji. Looking at Yuji, whose eyes were rolled back and who was lying in the ruins covered in blood, Kazuma went in thought for a moment. He then said, "Student, get up quickly. You are not allowed to sleep here." As soon as these words came out, Yuji's consciousness was immediately brought back to reality. Megumi. He stood up suddenly, breathing heavily, then looked up and saw a familiar face. Kazuma? Yuji was delighted at first, then immediately said anxiously, "Go and save Megumi, he is possessed by Sukuna." Seeing Yuji's anxious look, Kazuma made way and pointed forward. He's already trying to save him. Megumi's father is working hard. Kazuma's goal is to quickly complete the culling game and take the first place in the scoreboard to get the system reward, BT Anshin. There is no pressure in speedrunning. He can just beat up Sukuna and then use a lot of points to end this game. But the only trouble now is the points ranking. Kenjaku went to the Tombs of Star Corridor. Currently, the control of the culling game should be in Yurom's hands. Now, at every moment, there should be a large number of contracted players and cursed spirits working for her. Relying solely on himself or with the help of Jujutsu High, he definitely won't have as many points as Yurom. From the fact that Yurom had spent 100 points lavishly just to pass on a message to Sukuna, it was clear that she had quite a few points in her hands. T/N, Yurom passed on message telling Sukuna about Maharaga's ability. Moreover, anonymously teleporting Tsumaki to the first colony was probably also Yurom's doing. To put it bluntly, a large group of players who had signed a contract with Kenjaku years ago are now forced to work for Yurom. So, if that's the case, then he should just wait for Yurom to show up, and then just grab the pointer from her. All he has to do now is wait for Yurom to show up. Yuji stared at the battle ahead, obviously attracted. Wow, so strong. I didn't expect there to be someone in this world who can fight Sukuna to this extent with just physical strength. Kazuma looked at Yuji carefully. In just a few minutes, the blood on Yuji's body had coagulated and the injuries of all sizes on his body were healing rapidly. In terms of strength, Yuji is probably not that weak at the moment, right? Wait. Yuji suddenly thought of something. He stood up and looked at Kazuma. Can Megumi's father beat Sukuna? Kazuma analyzed, not likely. What? Yuji shouted in shock, then what are we waiting for? Let's go help. At the same time, two afterimages in the sky were still bombarding each other. Although Sukuna was hit several times during this process, he still did not forget to taunt. Try harder, this alone won't save your son. Toji even exhaled a breath of foul air and suddenly changed his fighting style. He took several punches from Sukuna, then suddenly moved closer. The muscles in his arms exerted force, his veins bulging, and he locked Sukuna's body tightly. An extremely indifferent voice rang out. You are even more annoying than Gojo, who was floating in the sky back then. After saying that, he grinned and raised his head suddenly. He gathered strength and delivered a powerful and heavy headbutt towards Sukuna's head. Click! A dull thud sounded, followed by the sound of bones breaking. Sukuna felt like his head was hit by a huge hammer. He fell directly to the ground. He was dizzy and confused by this sudden attack. Touching his cracked skull, Sukuna cursed angrily, "Where did this lunatic come from?" Toji's eyes were cold and blood was flowing from his forehead. He was like a beast that felt no pain. He stuck out his tongue and tasted the blood flowing from his forehead to the corners of his mouth. Toji knew clearly that Sukuna was not inferior to himself in either speed or physical strength. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, Sukuna had not used any cursed technique. Generally speaking, he is indeed no match for him. But so what? Anyone who dares to attack his son will be killed, even if it is the king of curses. Chapter 199, Toji's Determination. Are all people with heavenly restrictions like you, self-harming idiots? Sukuna spat out disdainful and cold words. The wound on his forehead had already been healed by him using the reverse curse technique. In this way, the one who had suffered a loss in the exchange just now was only Toji. However, Toji just stared coldly at Sukuna in front of him, ignoring his ridicule. With every step he took, his aura rose. I am saying it again, get out of my son's body. After saying this, he swung his hand back to gather strength, and his eyes fixed on Sukuna's face. The next second. Bang! The ground beneath his feet suddenly broke apart, and Toji was nowhere to be seen. The fleeting punch hit Sukuna's face hard, without any mercy. This punch was like a mountain pressing down on Sukuna, causing his face to twist, and he flew backwards for hundreds of meters before he could barely stop. Come on! Sukuna didn't care about the injury on his face at all. Instead, he rushed ahead and attacked Toji. The two powerful punches collided violently without giving in to each other. The powerful impact pierced through the thick wall of the building, and a spider-like crack appeared under the feet of the two people, which was rapidly spreading in all directions. Suddenly, a figure flew out from the smoke at high speed. Sukuna bent and grabbed the ground, his sharp black nails making long scratches on the ground. Only then did his rapid retreat stop. His heart was filled with surprise. Although he only has the strength of 16 fingers, his body's strength has long exceeded the category of a normal special grade. But facing the heavenly restriction user in front of him, he actually lost in the physical battle? In the past 1,000 years, he had never encountered a sorcerer who could make him take even a few steps back just by using physical attacks. Is this the case with all physical-type heavenly restriction users, or is this man in front of him too abnormal? If Yuji, the indestructible cockroach, possessed a strength that even he envied, then the man in front of him relied entirely on his own strength to launch attacks beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. Ha ha ha! Sukuna suddenly stood up and laughed. It's been a long time since I have had such a refreshing battle. Let's end it here. There was no time for Sukuna to continue thinking. Toji kicked a huge truck and it flew towards Sukuna. As the truck flew out, Toji followed closely behind the truck like a ghost. He wanted to give this so-called king of curses a fatal blow. However, Sukuna just waved his fingers calmly. Cleave. Swish. The all-destroying slash instantly cut the incoming truck in half. The next moment, the wild wind died down, leaving only the sound of a sharp swish. Toji suddenly slashed with his sword. But Sukuna seemed to have anticipated this and calmly dodged the fatal blow. A joking expression appeared on Sukuna's face. He said, "What do you think I am?" These tricks have already been played out by those people back then. Thousands of years ago, many sorcerers skilled in assassination had used similar tricks to try to sneak attack and kill him. But in the end, without exception, they were all cut in half by him. They died without a complete corpse. Having missed the chance to attack, Toji did not give up and continued to hack and chop. However, Sukuna did not intend to waste time on this. Let's end our game here. Your taijutsu is indeed good, but that's all. As soon as the words fell. Swish. A slash flew out again. Feeling a sense of danger, Toji instinctively switched from offense to defense and blocked with his sword. However, he had still underestimated the power of Sukuna's slash. The long sword in his hand was cut instantly, and a deep scar appeared on his chest. His entire body rapidly flew backwards. Sukuna put his hands in his pockets and said disdainfully, "It hurts, right? And you don't seem to know reverse cursed technique." Toji fell to the ground and looked down at the shocking scar on his chest, his expression still calm. It was as if the one who was attacked just now was not him. He stretched out his hand and slowly touched the wound on his chest, saying calmly, is the attack from the King of Curses just a tickle? Sukuna laughed in anger. Tickling? In that case, I'll give you a chance. As long as you can touch me, I will let your baby son go, how about that? Toji grinned and said, come on. Swish. Toji rushed towards Sukuna's body at a high speed and stopped where he was. The sharp slash cut all the way down along Toji's shoulder. Puff! Bright red blood instantly spurted out from the shoulders to the thighs. However, Sukuna was slightly surprised. Toji was hit by his cleave but was not split into two. Is this guy's body stronger than steel? After all these years, this was the first time he had encountered someone who could withstand his attack with just their mortal body? Hana, who was flying in the sky and watching the battle, widened her eyes and covered her mouth in horror. This won't work, father-in-law. Megumi's father is very strong but he can't stand being chopped like this by Sukuna. She began to call upon Angel in her body. Don't you have a unique healing technique? Help him. Angel hesitated and said, but if I do this, I won't be able to use Jacob's ladder again in a short amount of time. During this period of silence, Angel had been secretly gathering strength in Hana's body, preparing to give Sukuna another fatal blow. But with Sukuna on one side and Hana's future father-in-law whom she wants to please on the other, how should she choose? Angel is not Sukuna, a demon who has no human feelings. For a moment, Angel was in a dilemma. She still couldn't forget the man who had emerged from the whirlpool and had stuffed an energy ball into Sukuna's mouth. If he also joins the battle against Sukuna, it will be much easier. But now he is standing in a tall building far away to watch the battle? Is he waiting for some opportunity? Below, Sukuna looked at Toji who was slowly walking towards him, and said in an unhappy tone. Although you have withstood my attack, I had never taken you seriously. You extremely weak human bug, don't you have any self-awareness? Don't you feel bored when you keep talking about ridiculous things like family, love, and friendship every day? In Sukuna's eyes, so-called humans are just a bunch of ants that can be crushed to death at any time. And those so-called sorcerers are nothing more than slightly larger ants. Toji still kept his head down and said nothing, walking towards Sukuna with heavy steps. His murderous expression was in stark contrast to the smiling Sukuna on the other side. Seeing that he still dared to approach him, Sukuna said impatiently, dismantle. The numerous slashes all hit Toji's body, and blood spurted out. However, the more this happened, the more intense his grim smile became. He stared ahead with bloodshot eyes, like a bloody avenger. His whole body was covered with wounds. He looked like a bloody man, or even a demon from hell. He was completely defenseless and kept moving forward despite the attacks. Haha, that's it? What if you cut me into pieces? What if you want to kill me? If you dare to touch my son, you will have to pay the price. On the tall building, Yuji gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. Damn it! Damn Sukuna! This fight isn't fair at all. In his opinion, being able to achieve this level with just the physical body was already very impressive. Chapter 200, One More Headbutt. But this bastard Sukuna has no honor at all. He actually used Megumi as an excuse to let his father take the slash. If this continues, even if Megumi's father is physically strong, he will die. Yuji thought anxiously. Kazuma on the side looked down at the battle situation below thoughtfully. Toji and Sukuna's battle had brought him an ultimate visual feast. However, Toji is not a reckless man like Yuji. He would never resist Sukuna's attack just to be angry. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to follow Gojo for several days in a row in order to kill him, and to act with great patience when Gojo was most tired. Not to mention that he had fully understood all of Gojo's techniques beforehand. Thinking of this, his eyes fixed and his Sharingan moved. After a while, the corners of his mouth turned up. I see. That's what I said. Toji would never do such a meaningless thing. Through the careful observation of the Sharingan, he saw that the power of Sukuna's slash was weakened at the moment it had hit Toji. This is definitely not due to Sukuna's lack of cursed energy or weakness, nor is it because Toji used some strange trump card. It's because of Megumi whose body is occupied by Sukuna. The two fathers and sons have reached a mutual agreement without any communication. Angel! Heal him now! Hana, flying in the sky, was madly shouting at Angel in her body. Toji below has been completely turned into a bloody man under Sukuna's slash. Oh, well, there's really nothing I can do about you. Below, Toji, who was bearing the storm of slashes, was getting closer and closer to Sukuna. Suddenly, a beam of holy light shone on his head, and the injuries on his body began to recover under this holy light. He glanced, nodded at Hana in the sky, and continued to move towards Sukuna in front. Seeing this, Sukuna raised his eyebrows slightly and said, "Healing techniques other than reverse cursed technique? Do you think this will work?" Although Toji is getting the healing of the holy light, his recovery speed is far less than the damage caused by his slashes. It's nothing more than a dying struggle. Thinking of this, Sukuna once again increased the output of his cursed energy. For a moment, the overwhelming slashing attacks completely surrounded Toji. However, the expected scene of Toji being cut into pieces still did not appear. Looking at Toji getting closer and closer to him, Sukuna frowned and realized that something was wrong. Even the strongest steel bars would be cut into pieces. How could human flesh continue to resist? After a careful observation, Sukuna's pupils contracted as he knew the reason. So that's it, it was the little brat inside him that was causing trouble. He was wondering how Toji could withstand his slashes. It turned out that it was because his own curse energy output had decreased. This also resulted in the slash that could have killed Toji only causing less than fatal damage to him. Megumi, you are so shameless even though you have already been devoured by me. Is it because you can't bear to see your father being cut to death? Then I will make you completely collapse in despair. An excited smile appeared on Sukuna's face at thought of killing his opponent. He slowly raised his hands, and cursed energy continued to gather. Go to hell. Before he could finish his words, he was grabbed by a pair of bloody hands. A terrifying face that looked as if it had been washed in blood appeared before my eyes. A devilishly deep voice came to his ears. You've scraped me so hard, are you tired? As he spoke, Toji grinned, raised his head again, and suddenly hit Sukuna's head. Bang! A muffled sound echoed, followed by a bone-cracking sound. The two were sent flying backwards under the powerful impact. Sukuna felt his vision spinning and he saw stars. At the same time, an overwhelming rage surged in his heart. Looking at Toji lying on the ground, dying, he roared in anger. You bastard! How dare he humiliate him twice with such a stupid attack? What a shame this is for him, the king of curses. Damn, I will do it myself. However, before he could finish his words, a loud bang was heard from the rooftop in the distance. A red figure turned into a stream of light and flew towards them at high speed. Yuji clenched his fists, and black lightning surrounded him. Bang! A black flash hit Sukuna's arm solidly, knocking him back dozens of meters. Sukuna shook his numb arms and sneered, You're not dead yet, you're just a piece of shit. At the same time, he also glanced at Kazuma on the rooftop in the distance. From beginning to end, Kazuma had never intervened. Was he waiting or planning something? His intuition told him that he could no longer get entangled with these small fry. He should just go back, adjust himself and swallow all the remaining 4 fingers phi.rst. By then, with his full strength, 10 Shadows technique, and Maharaga, he will be completely invincible. What Kazuma? What Gojo? He won't even have to take them seriously. Yuji's roar brought Sukuna back to his senses. What caught his eye was another black flash. This time, Sukuna did not resist, but instead moved his body to the side and dodged. Black flash in every punch? He looked at this old friend with whom he had been living day and night with some surprise. Little brat, where did you get the courage? Get lost. Yuji stood in front of Toji, staring at Sukuna. He. Sukuna couldn't help but laugh out loud. You know, when a person or animal that is too weak gets angry, the stronger ones will think it is just being cute. Or, are you, Yuji, acting like a bitch now because you're jealous that I gave up on you and took over Megumi's body? Facing Sukuna's ridicule, Yuji ignored it and grabbed the steel pipe on the ground and launched an attack. Bang! 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 From time to time, black lightning appeared. The two figures collided with each other and separated again. This cycle repeated itself for about 3 rounds, then Sukuna launched a slashing attack and sent Yuji flying. The steel pipe in his hand also broke into 2 pieces. Looking at the lively Yuji, Sukuna said dissatisfiedly, "Tisk, it's the little brat in this body that's causing trouble again. I will make you sink to the depths of despair when I return." Shocking bloodstains were seen on Yuji's chest and his adrenaline surged. Suddenly, an extremely cold female voice sounded. "Really?" Sukuna's eyes widened, and a silent aura of death filled the surroundings. Beside him, a woman with short hair, black clothes, and holding a long sword was leaning quietly against the wall. Those extremely calm eyes revealed endless murderous intent. That temporarily wraps up this series What If Ninja in Jujutsu Kaisen. Thanks so much for listening. The new series will drop in 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Just a quick reminder, What If Ninja in Jujutsu Kaisen is now on hold, since we've caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these 3 fanfics. What if Reborn is Goku clone? What if Natsu has dual elements? What if Transmigrated in one piece and becoming a marine? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top pick and start working on that series next. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.